All right, let's talk about the bucket system for the 2025 US Open. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome on in. The bucket system is a tool that analyzes every top 10 leaderboard of a specific event. And since we're talking about the US Open, the bucket system is only looking at US Opens, dating all the way back to 2013 and grabbing the most important stats for each of those golfers inside the top 10 of each US Open. So it's really focusing on the most important stats. And because this is a DFS channel, I'm not looking for every stat that the winner has had. So I'm not looking for one golfer. I'm not looking for two golfers. I want 6 golfers. And that means we have to construct a lineup that is unique and purposeful. I want to create a meaningful lineup that has the best possibility to take down a GPP. And that's why I target the optimal. That's why I'm trying to target the optimal every single week, because nobody can beat a perfect lineup. So the best way to do that is to get all 6 of your golfers inside the top 10. We'll talk more about how likely that is to happen. I went over the 2016 US Open and went over all the golfers that just kind of seemed odd to have found their way inside the top 10. I'm gonna kind of further elaborate or further go down that rabbit hole and try to figure out, golfers that are coming in with the good recent form. Is that what we want to target? Do we want to target the studs? The bucket system will help us do that. And I really want to get very micro level with this type of, I guess, projection and prediction. So we'll do that. I'm also going to show you the RBC Canadian Open, the bucket system for that event, just to show you how well it did, and also to explain how to use the bucket system, because this is available to you guys on the cheat sheet that I provide for you. I'll show you how to get there. But before we get into all of that, I just want to remind you of some quick giveaways. Now, I've mentioned this in every single video, but I think it's just worth mentioning because I don't want you guys to miss out on a giveaway if you haven't, or if you don't know about it. So the first one that I'm doing is a win the pot giveaway. It starts at $20, and for every 1 new subscriber, it goes up by $2. So I timestamped what this channel, the subscribers on this channel, I timestamped that over there by the goal before I ran the giveaway. It was at 841. Currently, as of the recording of this video, we're up to 848. I had said if we reach 850 subscribers, so this is a new wrinkle added to the giveaway. If we reach 850 subscribers, I will change that starting amount from $20 to $50. So it just adds exponentially more money. And then just as the original win the pot giveaway rules apply, I'm still adding $2 for every 1 new subscriber. So if you do the math, if we reach 850 subscribers, I'm adding $18 on top of the 50 that I'm going to change that starting amount to. So you guys could win about $60, $68, $70 just by subscribing to the channel. If you want an entry into this giveaway, comment down below in the comment section. Comment down below. You got to be subscribed. I am not giving away money to someone who is not subscribed. So subscribe, comment down below, and that's how you can get yourself into the entry. And oh, by the way, go to all the other US Open videos that I've posted this week. Go comment on those. That gets you an additional entry. You get 1 entry per video that you comment on. So go do it if you haven't. You have until Tuesday, June 10th, 7 p.m. when I'm going to run this giveaway live on my stream. And we'll be going live at 7 p.m. on June 10th. So go comment on any of those videos, get your extra entries. Now, another giveaway that I'm doing is a SweetSpotDFS.com giveaway. This kind of goes hand in hand with the previous giveaway. The more subscribers we get, the closer we get to the goal. So if once we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will give away $1,000 worth of giveaways. One is a lifetime membership to SweetSpotDFS.com. The other one's an annual membership to SweetSpotDFS.com. And I'm giving away 2 $100 cash giveaways. So altogether, that's 4 giveaways. So I will be randomly drawing 4 people. And if you want an entry into this giveaway, you have to sign up at SweetSpotDFS.com. That's the only thing you got to do. There, all you have to do is give me a email address and a password, and you're set. Well, I don't need your password. When you go sign up on SweetSpotDFS.com, you create a username and a password, and you have to put your email address in there. That is all. I wanted to mention it's very low maintenance. You don't have to do much in order to create an account at SweetSpotDFS.com. It does not ask you for a credit card, nothing. You can be a free user on that site, and you can access some of the tools, not all of the tools. Some of those are behind paywalls. But either way, that is available to you at SweetSpotDFS.com. And again, once we reach 1,000 subscribers, I'll give away $1,000 worth of giveaways. Okay, those are the giveaways. That was a bit longer than I cared to go over, but I still wanted you guys to know all about them. So let's move on to the video at hand. Let's go over the Canadian Open first. So I want to show you how successful the bucket system was for the Canadian Open, and I'm going to explain all about it as well. So in this section here, that's this year's totals. So the 2025 Canadian Open. In the column that I've highlighted, you will see a Y or an N. Y means it was successful, and N means it was not successful. And as I scroll down, we will see a couple no's. And we'll talk about that. We'll touch up on that. But starting here at the top, so how do I determine if a bucket is successful? Well, it starts with the projections. Now, just to give you kind of a high level overview as to what these projections or how I create these projections, it's basically me projecting how many golfers from this bucket will finish inside the top 10. And it goes by historical data, again, going all the way back to 2013. This first bucket is called the last year one bucket, meaning golfers who finished inside the top 20 of last year's Canadian Open are in this bucket. Now, there are 6 stat categories with 6 buckets in each of those stat categories, equaling up to be 36 unique buckets. But each golfer is put into 6 of these buckets for each of the stat categories. So they will find they'll find themselves in one of these buckets. They'll also find themselves in one of these buckets, and so on and so forth. So for the last year one bucket, those are golfers who finished inside the top 20 last year. There were a total of 13 golfers. So this is where the beauty of looking at the bucket system, this is where it comes from, or this is why I like going over the bucket system. 13 golfers. So if there was a tournament where it was like, oh, you know, a finishing position from last year actually shows out to be a very common stat for each winner every single year. Well, I can come in here and tell you yes and no. I mean, every single year, this stat here, the frequency rate, means there's been at least one every single year inside the top 10. And that goes for every stat category, every bucket. And the projection you see here says 1.49 to 2.48. Well, we round down with the minimum. 1.49 goes to 1, 2.48 goes up to 3. So the projection for this bucket, what I'm projecting the golfers to finish inside the top 10 is 1 to 3. 1 to 3. And inside the top 10, we had 3. In the optimal lineup, we had 2. So therefore, well, first of all, in order for this success to show a yes, I first look at this column. Does this number, which is 3, fit inside the projection of 1 to 3? Obviously, that's yes. Therefore, right away, it makes that bucket successful. Now, if this bucket was, or if this number was higher or lower than the projection, then I would look at the optimal lineup and see if the appropriate amount of golfers finished in the optimal lineup. That would then satisfy the bucket as well, and it would make it a yes. And just to show you what this looks like from a different lens, here's our top 10 from the Canadian Open. Ryan Fox won the event. Guess what? He was in that last year bucket 1. He had finished 7th at the 2024 Canadian Open. Sam Burns had finished 10th in the 2024 Canadian Open. And then Victor Perez, who finished 9th in the 2025 Canadian Open, finished third in the 2024 Canadian Open. I'm just rattling these all off so you guys can fact check me if you want. But that is what we see inside the top 10. So if you're kind of dubious and go, well, these aren't strokes gained stats, it's not a big deal, like who cares? I've done this since 2017, going over the bucket system. I've streamed or I've YouTubed since 2019, but I've actually looked at the bucket system since 2017. And that's why I started a YouTube channel, is because I just keep finding the same commonalities. And here's the thing, I go over 36 buckets with projections from 0 to 2, 1 to 3, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, 3 to 6, stuff like that. And throughout every single bucket system that I go over, we see somewhere between 33 to 36 buckets correct, nearly 100%. And it's the same type of projections. And if you're wondering, well, what good does that do me? It limits the golfers you can choose from, which just gives you a more meaningful player pool. That's it. I'm not focused in on some of the generalized stats that everybody else uses. Strokes gained stats. Most people don't even know how to explain what strokes gained stats are. They don't even know how they're calculated. They don't even understand that 12 rounds versus 24 rounds can have a huge discrepancy. Same thing goes from 24 to 36. Most people don't know how to explain those stats. I do go over strokes gained stats. I have strokes gained buckets down here, by the way. I'm not going to go into strokes gained stats. I'll save it for the live stream. Ask me on the live stream if my feelings on strokes gained stats, and I'll tell you them there. Don't get me wrong; they are the most they are the best stat that we currently have, but they're not going to always find. They're not going to find you 6 golfers to finish inside the top 10. Again, if I could put an alert up, this is a DFS channel. We're trying to find a lineup of 6 golfers. That's why the bucket system is important to me. That's why it should be important to you. Because if you really want a chance to win a GPP, you got to go outside the box. You need to find 1, 2, maybe even 3 golfers that don't share a stat profile with your anchor golfers, with your Scotty Schefflers, with your Rory McIlroys. That's why I go over the bucket system. That's why I think it's important. And that is my my marketing ploy to you guys. That's my whatever you call it. I can't think of the word, but moving on from this last year 1 bucket, 3 of them finished inside the top 10. 2 of them were in the optimal lineup. And then I also keep track of a sweet spot optimal as well that follows all of the rules for the week. So you can see, look at all the Y's that we see, and then we see 2 no's. Now, I do have to go into these and see if they're truly unsuccessful, because there is some coding that I just can't get to because it's super annoying. But it looks like, okay, so let's take a look at this. There were 8 7K golfers inside the top 10 of the Canadian Open. Guess what you're not doing? You're not building a lineup of 6 golfers only in the 7K range. Just not going to happen. You're also not going to do 5 golfers just in the 7K range. Leaving that much money on the table is foolish. Plus, you had 42 golfers that were in the 7K range. Very difficult to find at least 5, at least 4, maybe 3. And I had the projection set at 1 to 4. So as you can see right here, it says 1.84 to 3.06. Remember, we round down with the minimum. So 1.84 goes down to 1. Max projection goes from 3.06 up to 4. So I had 1 to 4. It was a very huge range, a huge projection. And obviously the finishing totals of that bucket had 8 golfers inside the top 10. That's insane. We rarely see that. I'm okay biting the bullet on this one. That was a true failure. So we're 1 bucket down. The other one is the strokes gained 1 bucket. Now, I will be completely transparent with you on this one. This is so close to being a 0 to 3 bucket. This number 2.31 is pretty low. Anything that hovers around like basically anything from 2 to 2.15, I always bump the minimum down to a 0 because I've seen it so much that I know that we want to make it a 0 to 3. And one of the golfers in that bucket was Rory McIlroy, who missed the cut in a blazing fashion. He was so bad, but that is kind of listen, I'll just get straight to the point. This bucket was also a failure. It did not live up to expectations. There were 0 of those golfers inside the top 10 and 0 in the optimal lineup. If I go to the DraftKings page that I have and I go ahead and put a filter on this, let's take a look where our nearest golfer was. Oh, it was 13th place. It was Shane Lowry and then also Alex Smalley. 13th place. So how far did we miss? If I go to 13th place, there's Ludwig, Alex Smalley. So they shot 13 under. So they were 1 shot away from being inside the top 10, where that bucket would have been accurately predicted or projected to have the appropriate amount of golfers inside the top 10. So 1 shot away. 1 shot away for 2 of those golfers. I just needed 1 of them to finish inside the top 10, and this bucket would have been successful. So one shot between 2 golfers. That was it. 1 shot. And that's why this bucket was unsuccessful. So if we're tallying it up at home, you see 2 no's. And like I said, there's 36 buckets. So you do the math. There's 34 successful buckets out of 36. And the thing is, there were 8 golfers in the 7K range. You could have picked 3. You could have picked 2 and you'd have been just fine. And then the strokes gained 1 bucket. I'm sure you could have won some money. Actually, let's take a look. Did the GPP winning lineup have one of those guys? Yeah, Alex Smalley. The guy who won $50,000 last week had Alex Smalley in it, a strokes gained 1 golfer. So do with that as you will, but that is exactly how you would use the bucket system when it comes to the projections and then comparing how well it did. Actually, I didn't really explain how you use the bucket system. Let's do that with the US Open. But I did want to show you how successful the bucket system was for the Canadian Open. So when we go to the US Open, and by the way, this is available to you guys on the cheat sheet. If you go to SweetSpotDFS.com and you drill down on the cheat sheet, you will then go to a page. I'm going to let it load first. By the way, you can always watch the most recent video on the homepage. So I do have the DraftKings First Look podcast right here, so you can watch it there. The cheat sheet has loaded. So this is a work in progress. It has been for a while. I won't lie. I've put it on the back burner for now. But if you scroll down on the page, not on the report, because this is the tool, the report. You scroll down on the page and you get to this cheat sheet right there. Click on here. And then this will open up the cheat sheet. From here, you can go into the bucket system and everything that you see on the page that I have, 2.18 to 3.64, 2.18 to 3.64. It's very small on your end right now. I'm going to keep it that way. I just want to show you the difference between the two, that I'm going between 2 pages and it's not the same thing that you're looking at, but you can follow along on the bucket system there. There's also filters at the top of the page that you can use to filter out the way that I will be filtering out in this video. So let's just go stat by stat. Like I said, I want to get really narrow with my projections this week and the golfers that I want to target. So the very first stat category to go over are the last year buckets, or the buckets to go over. Let's talk about last year 1. These are golfers who finished inside the top 20 of the US Open last year. The projection that I have is 2.18 to 3.64. Now, I do have more of a conservative projection over here, 3.07. That's close to being under 3. And typically what I'll do with something like this is it is in my mind already to make this a 1 to 4 projection. So I'm projecting up to 4 golfers from last year's top 20 leaderboard to finish inside the top 10 leaderboard of this year's US Open. So if you want to see those golfers, or I mean, follow along with me, put a filter on the US Open tab on the cheat sheet. And then under last year, you can already see Scottie Scheffler was not a part of the last year bucket. Let's go ahead and clear out everything and only select last year one. So here are all the golfers that finished inside the top 20 of last year's US Open. You can see what their finishing positions are right here under course fit under last year. Obviously, Rory finished second. Bryson is your defending champion. So we have a total of 19 golfers, and the projection says 1 to 4. Here is, it's unfortunately complicated, but it is also kind of simplistic at the same time. There are so many good golfers in this event, and obviously Scottie Scheffler is one of them. Scottie Scheffler is not in this bucket. So if Rory McIlroy finishes inside the top 10 and he's the only golfer, or let's just put it this way, if Rory and Bryson finish inside the top 10 of the 2025 US Open, and so does Scottie Scheffler, but Scottie Scheffler wins the event, it gets really complicating from there, because the point totals that are generated on DraftKings are really going to determine if you fade Scottie, who might win the event, versus playing Rory or Bryson, who may not win the event, but still finish inside the top 10. It just comes down to how many birdies are scored, how many eagles are scored, and it's very difficult to determine that at a US Open, especially Oakmont. So I have done this in the past. We learned this out at the Memorial Tournament. There needs to be a Scottie Scheffler filter. And basically all that does is it bumps down the minimum projection of every bucket. Every bucket, including Scottie and not including Scottie. Because we are now in an era where DraftKings is putting Scottie Scheffler at $14,000. And there is a possibility, especially at that price tag, I think that is such a crazy price tag. It's the most expensive we have seen, but Scottie Scheffler was just recently in the optimal lineup at the Charles Schwab Challenge at $13,700, and he didn't win that event. So just putting that down. It was a weaker field. It's not the same field that we have this week, but I just want you to sit on that. $13,700, and Scottie didn't win, and he was in the optimal lineup. So we need to create a Scottie filter for these buckets, because Scottie is, it's historic what Scottie's doing. And that really puts a wrinkle in all of this projection. Not so much the projection stuff, just how to build lineups. A younger me back in 2017, or well, in 2019, 2020, when I first started this, I told you wanted to find at least 2 golfers from this bucket, but no more than 4. That's how I used to read these buckets. Over time, I've realized there are golfers from other buckets that can actually decrease the minimum projection for each of these buckets. No, I shouldn't even say it that way. Let me rewind. Depending on the bucket. So this last year one bucket, 3 golfers are in the 10K range. Those 3 golfers could actually finish inside the top 10, whereas the rest of the golfers in this bucket may not. Especially when you look at the bottom of the list. I mean, these are all pretty quality golfers. You have Akshay Bhatia, Taylor Pendrith, Davis Thompson, Aaron Rai, Thomas Dietrich, and Matthew Pavon. They're all tour winners, previous tour winners. So it's difficult to say you don't want to put any of those golfers in your lineup, but there is a real possibility that these 3 could finish inside the top 10. And a younger me that said you want to find at least 2 of these guys, in reality, it might just be 1, because it might be one of these expensive golfers, and trying to build a lineup that anchors around one of these expensive golfers, or maybe even 2 of them, mean that you cannot put in up to 4 from this bucket, unless it's with some of those cheap guys. So we have to be intelligent with our decision making when it comes to all of this. We have to really think about it. Again, these projections are just projections of finishing inside the top 10. They're meant to guide you and not selecting too many golfers from that bucket, and also maybe not selecting too little or not enough golfers from that bucket. So that's kind of what I mean when it comes to selecting golfers from each of these buckets. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these buckets. I did say I want to get really narrow when it comes to building lineup or selecting golfers. So actually, maybe I will go through each of these buckets. I'm sorry. I kind of just changed that on the fly. Let's go over last year 2s, the last year 2 bucket. Now, again, this was the last year 1 bucket. A lot of quality golfers in that bucket. Currently, the projection is 1 to 2, but actually, I'm sorry. Current projection's 2 to 4. I was just speaking and not paying attention. The current projection's 2 to 4, but in reality, this could be a 1 to 4 bucket, especially with Scotty Scheffler in the field, and especially with how expensive the golfers are at the top of this bucket. So let's go into last year 2s. And this projection was 0 to 2. There has always been at least one golfer. That's what the stat right here tells us. For minimum, there's always been at least one. Always one. The success rate is pretty low. 14. Well, I shouldn't say pretty low. It's actually relatively high. 14%. We have not seen a golfer, at least one, in the optimal lineup every single year, but we've seen 0 to 2. 75% of the time, we've seen a golfer in the optimal lineup from this bucket. So that is something worth noting. But when we look at the golfers in this bucket, do we really see any that stand out? No. To me, there aren't any golfers that stand out. There are some good quality plays. But again, the beauty of the bucket system is limiting you from grabbing too many golfers from this bucket. I'll say this. That projection is really close to being a 0 to 3 projection, but I would still err on just 0 to 2, which means probably don't want to select more than 2 golfers from this bucket. And it's headed by Brooks Koepka, which isn't all that good considering he's been playing some pretty horrible golf as of late. Then it goes to Tyrrell Hatton, which, I mean, both of these guys are on the LIV Tour. I don't know how that preps you for a US Open. They're still quality golfers, don't get me wrong. Then it goes to Keegan Bradley at $7,400. It's not bad. It's a good fill-in play. You know, $7,400 helps with a lot of Scotty Scheffler lineups. Just throwing that out there. I'm not going to go through all these golfers, but you can see all the other ones that are on the screen. Remember, this is to limit you from grabbing too many golfers. Could there be a bucket that fails? Absolutely. We just saw at the RBC Canadian Open, the 7K range. I projected 1 to 4. There were 8 inside the top 10. And then there were 5 in the optimal lineup, which is the most I've ever seen from the 7K range in the optimal lineup. So take that for whatever it's worth to you. The next bucket is the one that Scotty Scheffler is in. It is the last year 3 bucket. Now, historically, this bucket doesn't perform that well. We normally see around 9.64 golfers. We do have 11. Success rate of this bucket is 9.43. So just to touch up, why does this matter? If you've ever played competitive golf, you know how you performed from the year before. You also know how you've just been playing. So that's your recent form and your last week's start, whether you started or not. I like to keep track of all of that. If you've played or if you haven't, because those things matter. It's a psychological thing. This isn't, I'm not quantifying anything, but I am trying to capture what a last year finish means through stats. And what you can see again, 9.43%. So when we go into our last year 3 bucket, you see Scotty Scheffler clear away the best golfer in this bucket, $14,400. Sepp Straka's $7,700, almost half the price of Scotty. You can make the argument that he's not half the golfer of Scotty Scheffler, and I think you would be correct. But when it comes to building DFS lineups, it is one of those things that gets joked about quite a bit, but it's still true. You need to find the winner. Do I think Sepp Straka has an equal chance to win as Scotty Scheffler? No, I do not. Sepp Straka is actually a really good play this week. And in fact, this projection, the bucket for this projection is 0, or the projection for this bucket is 0-2. So you could really anchor your lineups around these two guys, Scotty Scheffler and Sepp Straka. Guess who you have to skip out on? You have to skip out on Spieth, Wyndham Clark, Fox, Harris English, who I do like this week, Nico Echeverria, Emiliano Grillo, Mark Hubbard, Justin Lauer, and I would skip out on Brian Campbell. That's fine. These guys down here at the bottom, not that big of a deal to me. The only guys that really stand out to me is like Harris English, Ryan Fox, Sepp Straka, and Scotty Scheffler. Just those 4 guys. So, by the way, this bucket isn't one of those that you absolutely have to play. It just, there's Scotty Scheffler in the bucket. So you do have to think about it. And again, we do have to create the Scotty filter on everything, including this bucket, although I don't know if we really have to with how cheap these golfers are. If there were more expensive golfers, then for sure we would want to bump down the projection, but 0-2 is 0-2. It's not that big of a deal. Just don't play more than 2 guys from this bucket, and you're going to do just fine. Moving on to the next one. Last year 4s. There are only 2 golfers in the bucket. That's a pretty easy one to skip. Pick one. I mean, you can pick both of the guys. Every bucket always has a minimum of 0 and a max of 2. That's the lowest projection. But quite frankly, I don't trust both of these guys. I would not put both of them in a lineup. That one's pretty easy to go through. Last year 5s. These are guys who missed the cut at last year's US Open. Almost every year, we see at least one guy from this bucket inside the top 10. That's what this frequency rate means over here. 90% of the time, we see at least one finish inside the top 10. 87.5% of the time. So that's what, 5 out of 6 or 6 out of, that's 6 out of 7. 6 out of 7 years, there's been at least one in the optimal lineup who has missed the cut from the year before. So again, this is just a projection. It's to limit you from grabbing too many golfers and also kind of nudge you in the way of grabbing at least one of the golfers. So when we look at this, again, these are all golfers who missed the cut last year. You have Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, Sung J M, Jason Day, Justin Rose. Actually, let's rewind a little bit. JT is $9,000. Victor Hovland's $85,000, and then it goes down into the 7, 6, and 5K range pretty quickly. So what that kind of tells me is the projection is spot on. 0-2. I'll stretch it to 0-3. Because I guess there is a possibility that we could see up to 3 golfers. Nah, never mind. Let's just keep it to 2. Sungjae's been having his issues. I will actually say there's something to talk about when it comes to recent form. And I will wait till we get to the recent form buckets. So if you want to skip ahead, go and check it out and then maybe come back. You can find the timestamps down below. We'll go over recent form a little bit more in detail, at least for the 2016 US Open that was played at the same golf course. Let's move on. Yeah, there are no real confident plays in my head as to who I would want to target, which is really interesting because I had built a lot of my lineups, or my dummy lineup is always my eyeball test. It has Tom Hoge in it, and I think it also has Justin Rose in it. It's close. I'm not exactly sure. I do have You have a 5K golfer. Man, Victor Perez is also in this bucket. Super, super interesting. I mean, I'm gonna stick to my guns. Only play up to 2 guys. Like max it out at 2, maybe 3, but don't play more than that. And there might not even be a reason for you to do that. And then the last bucket for this stat category, the last year bucket, are golfers who did not play last year. This can't be true. Did Jon Rahm and Joaquin Niemann actually not play last year? That can't be true. Is that true? Am I missing something? Oh, I think Jon Rahm was hurt. I don't want to replace. I want to find. Yeah, I don't have Rahm in my my finishes from 2024. And then that also means Niemann wasn't there also? Oh, he didn't qualify. That's right. He didn't qualify to be in the US Open. Interesting. Wow. Wow. Surprised me, man. Same goes with Patrick Reed. I mean, these are live golfers and they kind of got to accept your punishments, man. So Rahm, Niemann, Patrick Reed. Those are kind of high quality golfers from live that are noteworthy to include in your lineups. What's our projection here? 0 to 2. 0 to 2. I will give you a pass if you want to make this 0 to 3, but that is insane. 0 to 2? I'll tell you right now, Ben Griffin being the hottest golfer on the planet outside of Scottie Scheffler, it's hard to just ignore him. And it's also hard to ignore playing like Jon Rahm or Joaquin Niemann. And don't get me started, I should say, with like playing Andrew Novak, who him and Ben Griffin won the Zurich Classic together. They're almost equally as hot on tour. Bud Cauley, same thing. I also like Ryan Gerard at tough golf courses. Wow. I mean, some of these guys down here, you just ignore. I kind of had made this comment. If you have no idea who these golfers are, just ignore them. They're probably golfers who qualified. They don't have no, name value to go with them. Just skip them. We don't have to worry about some random guy winning a US Open. So, all right, well, let's move on. We'll go into the last week buckets. Now, these are golfers who either played last week or did not. Now, we don't have a lot of golfers that played last week at the Canadian Open. If you want to, kind of check against each of these buckets, I would go to the bucket totals where you will see the average per year that represent that bucket. So 9.67. That's the average amount of golfers from the last week one bucket for every US Open dating back to 2013. So that's not a lot. A lot of people take the week off before going to the US Open. However, for those that did play the US Open the week before, those golfers that did play the week before, you can see their success rates and their frequency rates. It's actually pretty high considering 83.3%. That is your frequency rate. Again, that means for every year that I've recorded this data, at least 83% of the time, one of the golfers from that bucket finished inside the top 10. And 18% success rate means of all golfers that represent that bucket dating back to 2013, not just every single year, but collectively as a whole, 18% of them finish inside the top 10. So that's a pretty good rate. That is a very good rate. The only downfall this year, and I can't really see what it's compared to from last year, but there are only 10 golfers in that bucket. It only consists of 12.27% of the strength of field points of the field. So that's not super high. It is the second highest behind those that missed the cut last week, which Rory McIlroy consists of the majority of of those points in that bucket. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at last week ones. Last week ones. Make sure there are no other filters within the buckets here, and then select last week one. And again, these are golfers who played last week at the Canadian Open and finished top 20. We have Ludwig Oberg, Shane Lowry, Sam Burns, Ryan Fox, who won. Sam Burns finished second. They were in a playoff. We have some good quality names. We do have some good quality names. And this projection is 0 to 2. So again, this is to limit you from grabbing too many of these golfers. If anything, let's give you a pass and say you can play up to 3 of these guys. I would stick to up to 2 golfers, but if you just feel a little frisky, you can go ahead and play 3. That's fine. I think that'll be fine. I do like Ludwig this week. I've never been, Shane Lowry is also one of those golfers that I've been considering quite a bit. Just as soon as DraftKings put salaries out and you saw him at $7,800, it's like, yeah, he's a pretty decent play. Same too as Sam Burns. Like I am not afraid to go to Sam Burns. I think he's been playing some super good golf as of late. And if Ben Griffin and Andrew Novak have been the hottest golfers outside of Scottie Scheffler, Sam Burns is within eyesight because he's been playing some really good golf as of late. So I do like Sam Burns. And in fact, I like more golfers from this list than what the projection says. I like Victor Perez. I already mentioned that. I like Thomas Dietrich. I have not yet mentioned that, but I like Thomas Dietrich. I don't mind Benny Ann, but I'm not pushing to it. Cam Young has also been kind of scorching earth as of late, but I'm also not going there. And then Ryan Fox won last week. I have no issue playing Ryan Fox. It's his second tournament that he's won. So it's not like he's going to have that huge hangover moment, although the Canadian Open is just a little bit more important than the Myrtle Beach Classic. That's the other tournament he won earlier this year. So remember, we're not trying to find winners from most of these buckets. I think that's just reserved for a few golfers in the field, but we do want to round out our lineups with golfers who have a good possibility of finishing inside the top 10. And there is something that I noticed, at least going back to 2016, but I think this applies for most US Opens. A lot of your top 10 leaderboards are of golfers who have already won on tour. And it doesn't matter what year, it's just they have won on tour. Every one of these golfers, except for Cam Young and Benny Ann, has Victor Perez. I think Victor Perez has won on tour, right? Maybe he hasn't either. But we have Oberg, Lowry, Sam Burns. They've won on tour. Ryan Fox has just won twice this year. Cam Young has not. Benny Ann has not. Thomas Dietrich has won earlier this year. Farmers Insurance Open. Nick Taylor has won a few times on tour. Not sure about Victor Perez. And Matt McCarty actually won the Black Desert Championship during the fall of last year. So if you needed a reason to play some of those golfers, I just gave you one. Let's move on. Last week twos, 0 to 2. There are currently 7 golfers in that bucket and doesn't really make up a lot of strength of field points. Let's see who those golfers are. Corey Connors, Bobby Mack, Taylor Pendrith, Mac Hughes, Thorbjorn Olesen, Emiliano Grillo, and Lanto Griffin. Yeah, I don't have any conviction plays here. But again, it's limited to 2 golfers, so don't play more than 2. And that one I would actually stay strict with. So moving on. The next bucket is last week threes. We have 6 golfers in that bucket, and this is also one of those 0 to 2 projected buckets. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, it says 0.15 to 0.24. You might be saying, well, Eric, didn't you say you round down with this number and you round up to this? Well, isn't 0.24 going up to 1? It doesn't go up to 2. That's true. But I always want a 2-point buffer between the minimum and the maximum. So that's why I say 0 to 2. And we don't have a lot of good golfers in here, to be quite frank. Wyndham Clark, Davis Riley, Rasmus Højgaard, Mark Hubbard, Zach Blair, Trevor Cohn. I don't have a tell on any of these guys. Rasmus, I think, has the highest upside, and at $6,100, that makes building lineups pretty easy. So does Mark Hubbard, but he's been very inconsistent, and I can't say I really trust playing Mark Hubbard. Davis Riley, he has won on tour before. I think that is important. So, yeah, do with that as you will. The next one, there are 2 golfers in the last week 4 buckets, and this is nearly 0% chance of having any of these guys finish inside the top 10. Adam Schenk and Justin Lauer. That's fine. Yeah, we can go ahead and say the same thing. I'll load up the last week 5s, and this is a 0 to 2 bucket as well, with 17 golfers representing this bucket, including Rory McIlroy, Sung Jae Im, Justin Rose, and Tom Kim. So this bucket is a projected 0 to 2. If you needed a reason not to play Rory McIlroy, maybe this is your reason. Now, if you do want to play Rory McIlroy, I would probably skip out on the rest of these golfers. You have up to 1 more you can choose from. Don't play more than 2. I'm not giving you that sneaky play, by the way, this week. Chris Gotterup. Primarily because it's so funny that he has 100% round under 70 percentage and he missed the cut last week. I think he missed it by 1. This number right here, bogey avoidance. He is 2nd in the field, bogey avoidance. And the guy mashes it off the tee, 313.9. If you look at his overall stats, this, where are we at? Right here. Yeah, off the tee is a strong suit. Not so much on approach, but again, if you look at his game log on DraftKings, he doesn't make a lot of bogeys. Handful of bogeys. The Players' Championship, I think he had 3 bogeys and 2 doubles. Now, the doubles hurt, obviously, but that's 5 total shots. 5 total scores, I should say, that he lost strokes on. He missed the cut there, I think, by 1 stroke also. But anyways, I just want to mention him because he is one of my sneaky plays this week. Chris Gotterup. Now, if you want to play Chris Gotterup, sure. Pair him up with Rory. I think that's fine, but I would just probably skip the rest of these golfers in this bucket and just go with Chris Gotterup or any of the other golfers that you might be interested in. So that's available to you guys, but the big bucket are the last week 6 golfers, the last week 6 bucket. And this has all of the golfers. I don't include Liv, by the way. So I think they did play last week at in Virginia. I don't include it. I'm not worried about that. Honestly, it's a 54-hole event. I don't think that really stresses these golfers out. It's a tune-up. Let's just put it that way. I don't think those finishing positions really matter as they do on the PGA Tour. So I'm just going to ignore them. I don't care. They're all going to be included in the bucket that did not play last week. So the last week 6 bucket. This is a 3 to 6. That is the the projection is actually larger than that. It is 4 to 7. 4 to 7 golfers from this bucket to finish inside the top 10. With that being said, if you just look at the 9K golfers and above, there are 7 of them. 7. Now, are all 7 of these golfers going to finish inside the top 10? They could. They could. Or maybe not. Yeah, you have some tough choices to make here. I don't really suggest building a full lineup of golfers who did not play last week, but you could. You could. Actually, I don't know. I still would hold to my guns and say don't. It is close. It is very close. I would, at minimum, play 3. Or I shouldn't even say that. Minimum 3 will be inside the top 10, for sure. For sure. It's just a huge bucket. There's 85 golfers in this bucket. No, 114. I was way off. 114. Yeah. You pick out the golfers you find most interesting. All right. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to spend too much time on the course history buckets. Now, this really just means tournament history. So just throwing that out there. There is really, I don't have course history just to Oakmont. This is tournament history. So we have 6 golfers that are course history 1s. Let's go ahead and clear out all the filters that we currently had and put in course history 1. Xander Schauffele's in that bucket. He has an average finishing position at the US Open, 7.13. That's not good enough to get it done, you know, to play him at 10,400, especially when the other golfers priced around him could win the event. You might be able to pair them up together, actually. If you want to do like a John Rahm Xander lineup, you could do that. A Bryson Xander lineup, you could also do that. Probably not a Scotty Xander lineup. I'm not even sure if it's possible, but I think you're just leaving a lot of win equity on the table if you go that route. But either way, if you were so interested in playing Xander, I got no issue with it. Same thing kind of applies with any of these other golfers, except for maybe, well, I'm going to skip out on Minwoo, Tom Kim, and Guido Migliozzi. And probably Brooks Koepka. Really, to me, it's just between these two guys that I want to play. I have no issue playing any of them, by the way. So if you have a feeling on one of them, use it. Go with it. Course history 2s, 1 to 3. 18 golfers in that bucket. Normally we see 21. So that's interesting. And we have our big hitters up at the top. So this is a definite. One of these guys will finish inside the top 10. Now, if we're making the Scotty filter, you know, he could still finish inside the top 10 with one of these other guys outperforming him. And maybe two guys outperforming him, or maybe one guy outperforming him in this price range, and then a couple or one guy down here, or maybe even two guys down here. So really, if I put a Scotty Scheffler on this projection, let's just count him in. So really, it would bump this min projection down. I always say that. Always want to bump down the min projection if we're including Scotty in on this one. So it's like a 0 to 3 projection, excluding Scotty. Meaning if you include Scotty, it's 1 to 4. I know that's kind of confusing, but we got to do that. I mean, Scotty's he's a terror, and it's difficult. And at his price tag, you just kind of have to. We have to make the adjustments for the buckets that he is in, and also the buckets he is not in. So a lot of the minimums I might actually bump down, even if they, well, yeah, even if they include Scotty. I think I'd bump down the projections because he's a ruiner of worlds. He's a ruiner of buckets. So yeah, man. This projection's 1 to 3. I'm going to change it to 0 to 3. And that's with or without Scotty. So again, do with that as you will. There are some good price golfers down here. The next one is course history 3s, which is 1 to 4. That projection is 1 to 4. Again, with Scotty Scheffler in the field, I am going to bump down the minimum and make this a 0 to 4 bucket. And I think that's really intelligent for this bucket because the top golfer is Sepp Straka at $7,700. And then it drops to 73, and then 7, and then into the 6K range, and then into the 5K range. Again, I'm focused on golfers who have won PGA Tour events. So those that have not, like Ryan Gerard, he has not yet won a PGA Tour event. Neither has Eric Cole. Taking a look, some of these guys have. It's so interesting. Nico has won on tour. He won the Zozo most recently. Matt Wallace has not. He has not won on tour. I can't remember if Carlos Ortiz has won or not. I think it was Abe Answer that won the Greenbrier. It's either him or it was Carlos Ortiz. In my head, I don't even know if that's true or not, but they have not won. But oh, and Benny Ann has not won. These golfers here have. So, yeah, I think it might be easy just to fade like Benny Ann, Carlos Ortiz, Matt Wallace, Ryan. I do like Ryan Gerard. That's a bummer. But yeah, I suppose we could fade him just because I do like the past PGA Tour winner narrative of putting 6 golfers who have won on tour in your lineup. Okay, let's move on. Course history 4s, that's a 0 to 2 bucket, or a 0 to 2 range. Were we already there? 0 to 2. Did I skip 3? I think I skipped 3. I did skip 3. My apologies. Whatever I just said about that last bucket, you can keep it as is. 0 to 2. And this projection I said for course history 3 is 1 to 4. We want to change this to a 0 to 4. Yeah, I think that still applies. But there are a few more quality golfers here. Justin Thomas being one of them, Neiman being another, Victor Hovland being another, and so too Shane Lowry. I do like Keegan. I really like Sam Burns. Okay, so there's a lot of good golfers in this bucket. If we wanted to make it a 1 to 4, I think that's fine, because I think we're going to have one of our glue pieces, if not two of them, to go with maybe a Scotty Scheffler or any of those other 10K golfers. You will have either the second or third golfer in your lineup come from this bucket. And oh, by the way, I include the bucket conditionals in my optimizer. So if you want to use the optimizer to build your lineups, go to SweetSpotDFS.com and scroll down to optimizer. Open that page. I'll show you what it looks like. I do still have the Canadian Open available, or that one's still loaded in. I update the optimizer when I get the tee times from the PGA Tour, but we have the conditionals right in this box, and that is how the optimizer chooses golfers. It goes by whatever the conditionals are for the bucket system. So those numbers that I was just showing you, these projections here, those go in here. In fact, I still have the Canadian Open up, so I'll show you. And I will kind of minimize this a little bit. So this is from the Canadian Open, right? So as you can see, last year 1 says 1 to 3. Last year 2 has 0 to 2. Last year 3 has 0 to 2 as well. If I go down here to the last year 6s, 2 to 5. So there you go. Just showing you that the optimizer does include the bucket projections already in there. So you don't even have to think about it. Basically, me showing you all of this is just giving you guys ideas to anchor your lineups around certain golfers that you find most important to put into your lineups. Okay. Going back to the US Open. Oh, I was going to show you. Once you drill down on Optimizer, you will get prompted with this pop-up. Put your email address in here and request now. And that's how you get the Optimizer. But remember, I don't complete it until Tuesday when I get lineups from, tee times from the PGA Tour. In this case, the USGA. But anyways, let's move on. So course history 3, that's what we were just talking about. Yeah. 0 to 4 is I'm comfortable with that as a projection. I mean, I'm going to definitely play one of these guys to go with Scotty Scheffler. Like in my Scotty Scheffler lineups, I like Scheffler Burns lineups. I know Shot Like Harden agrees with me out there, one of the viewers of this channel. That's usually his combo, and I think it's a fantastic combo. I also have built already Scotty and Joaquin Neiman lineups. I think that's fantastic. I do like Dietrich down here. I'm sure I like Jaeger, Sam Stevens, Chris Gotterup. Like I said, he's my sneaky play of the week. So, yeah, great. Oh yeah, Chris Gotterup has won on tour. He won last year's Myrtle Beach Classic. So he's won on tour as well. There we go. Fitting the narrative even more. Let's move on. We already went over course history 4s by mistake. Let's go over course history 5s. 0 to 2. Probably just going to skip this one, honestly. I suppose it is worth mentioning, though. You have Matt McNeely, JJ Spawn, Andrew Novak, Cam Davis, Bud Colley, Rasmus Højgaard, Thorbjorn Olesen. Oh my God, there's a lot of good names. Like from here up, these are all filler names that I want to put in my Scotty lineups. Well, I'm here to tell you 0 to 2. That is your projection. Then we'll move on to golfers who have never played a US Open. Ben Griffin. Wait a minute. I wonder, were these guys just added? I wonder why they don't have course history down. You can't have a last year finish without having course history. I'll have to update that. Interesting. Okay, so I think you just exclude those golfers. I don't get it. I'm not going to fix that right now on doing this video, but I will fix it by shortly after. These golfers should not be included. I have no idea why they are. They're not. There must be a copy and paste error on my part. But anyways, Ben Griffin has not played here before. And then you get a bunch of just random names. I'd say skip it. You can play up to 2 of them though. And Ben Griffin is a viable choice. Literally. I think that's a good play regardless. All right, let's go on to recent form. Recent form ones, 0 to 2 is the projection. These are golfers with the best recent form. And actually, let's rewind this. Not so much rewind. I want to show you what the 2016 tournament looked like. So Dustin Johnson won this. And these are my recent form pages within my Google Sheets. I keep track of tournament history, their last year finish, their recent form, and then whatever happened last week. This is how I was doing it before what I just showed you, before I upgraded to that whole system. If I go ahead and put a filter on this and I sort recent form from top to bottom, let me zoom in just a little bit more. Here's one of those things that I want you to just pay attention to. Some of you guys come in and you build lineups where you want 6 of these golfers of the best recent form. Here's where I add a little word of caution. Not everyone with the best recent form will make the cut, i.e. Rory McIlroy in 2016. He had the 2nd best recent form. Willie McGirt had just won at the Memorial heading into that event. Retief Goosen and Phil Mickelson all had pretty decent recent form. They all missed the cut. However, if we look at some of these other golfers, like say Daniel Summerhays, Brendan Steele, Adam Scott, Jason Duffner, Sergio Garcia, Epka, DJ, Jason Day. Right there, those are 8 golfers who had finished inside the top 20 of the 2016 US Open. They were some of the top golfers with recent form. If I count down here, that's 14 golfers total. Daniel Summerhays has the 14th best recent form. Of the 14 golfers, 8 of them finished inside the top 20. That's over 50%. So you actually have a pretty good ratio of picking golfers with good recent form. Now, it is worth mentioning these golfers would be in the recent form 1 bucket. And then Danny Berger down to Martin Keimer would be in the recent form 2 bucket. That's how these ranges work. So in this recent form 1 bucket, really you would have only wanted to play probably 1 golfer, and that was Dustin Johnson, because let's be real, back in 2016, he probably would have been $12,000 like he was in 2017. If I put a filter on, this is 2017, DJ was $12,000. He probably would have been the same thing in 2016, just because he was coming in with really good recent form and one of the better golfers in the field. But if I scroll down, you will see some interesting things. So this is still good recent form, still good recent form. And then we kind of get in this orange color. These are your recent form 3 golfers. We have Zach Johnson here, who isn't a long ball hitter. This is Oakmont again. And we get down and the recent form is still, I mean, it's getting a little bit worse. Shane Lowry coming in with a missed cut in a top 20. Those were his only 2 events heading into the US Open. Brandon Grace coming in with just 1 event, a 57th place finish at the Players Championship. Scott Piercy had a 23rd finish at the Players Championship, missed cut at the Byron Nelson, 67th at the Charles Schwab, and 69th at the Memorial. That's not good. Pink and red down here is not good. Yet Scott Piercy, Jim Furyk, Kevin Streelman, Kevin Na, and Drew Landry. 5 golfers right there with this pink recent form, just meaning terrible. Look at all their finishes. Streelman did have he had a top 10 heading into the event, but missed cut, 74th, missed cut. Jim Furyk, 52nd, missed cut, 35th, missed cut. Go down to Kevin Na, 74th, 42nd, missed cut. If I scroll down a little bit more, we have some top 20s, but then you just ignore some of these guys down here. But it's still worth mentioning, having bad recent form coming into this event is not death sentence. Now, I will say this, Kevin Na was a winner on tour at this time. So too is Andrew Landry. So too is Jim Furyk, Kevin Streelman, and I'm pretty sure Scott Piercy has won on tour. You know what? We're going to use SweetSpotDFS.com. We're already here, so I'm going to go, let's go round by round stats. We'll wait for it to load. I just want to take a look to see if he has. I actually will go back to 2025 and I will go ahead and put recent form 1. I'll load that into all of this because I did want to talk about the recent form of 2016 before we talk about, oh, do I need to log in? It's a bummer. I got logged out somehow. Don't mind me. Okay, going back to the US Open. I did want to show you the recent form for the 2016 US Open, just to give you some ideas as what to do with this year's. Heck, I am. I guess I just had to refresh. All right, my bad. I wanted to look at Scott Piercy. Piercy of the Scott kind. Sorry, let's go finish. His best finish. All tournaments. Third place? That's not right. Here, I can do this. Let's go 10. It is a third place. Oh, oh, that's why. T2. I see. It doesn't like sorting by. These are all his top 10 finishes. Okay, so he's never won on tour. At least not dating back to 2013. He has a second place finish at the AT&T Byron. RBC Heritage, third. Okay. All right, let's move on. Recent form 1s, 0-2. Scotty, Bryson, John Rahm. I mean, if you needed a reason to narrow down on any of those 3 golfers, here you go. This bucket isn't one of those anchor buckets that you need at least one golfer from, just throwing that out there, but just mentioning it nonetheless. So 0-2. Recent form 2s, 2-5. I am going to apply the Scotty filter to this, so it's 1-5. Because Scotty is in the field, we are always going to bump down those projections. 1-5. I should say this. The projections, again, are only for top 10 finishers. We can keep it at 2-5, but in reality, for you to pick golfers, probably 1-5 then. That's what I mean by that, is select 1-5. So we'll put the Scotty filter on this one. We get Rory and Xander at the top. That makes building lineups a little bit challenging because, again, we have Scotty Scheffler in the field. It isn't so much challenging if you are anchoring around these 2 guys and you're fading Scotty Scheffler, then it's fine. But then we have Patrick Cantlay, JT, Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, and then it bumps down to Shane Lowry. I'm getting the sense, and this is not how the bucket system works, by the way. Don't follow me into battle with this one. Shane Lowry's been in a lot of buckets. Scotty Scheffler's not. It makes lineup building very convenient because Scotty Scheffler and Shane Lowry just work together. of buckets you want to select non-Scotty Scheffler golfers, Shane Lowry's there. In the buckets that Scotty Scheffler is in that are anchor buckets, Shane Lowry's not. So it's very convenient. That doesn't mean it works out perfectly. That doesn't mean you want to put Scotty and Shane Lowry lineups together. But if you already were going that route, I'm giving you way more confidence than you probably already needed or already had. So there you go. That's kind of my 2 cents on the whole idea of Scotty, Shane Lowry lineups. But it looks good. They look good already, just starting that way. I don't really have anything to talk about more about this bucket. There's a lot of golfers in it. So for it to have up to 5 to finish inside the top 10, yeah, that makes sense. Next bucket's a 1 to 3 recent form threes. That starts with Colin Morikawa and Ludwig Åberg. So 1 to 3. Again, we put the Scotty filter on. 0 to 3. Choose 0 to 3, but I'm still projecting 1 to 3 to be inside the top 10, especially if it's Colin or if it's Ludwig. Now, I will say this. I have built viable Scotty, Ludwig, Åberg lineups. For 200 more, you could go Colin Morikawa. You could still probably do that and still have viable lineups, honestly. So I will still put a Scotty filter on this, and instead of 1 to 3, we'll make it 0 to 3, but I also don't mind keeping it 1 to 3. And then I'll keep it 0 to 3. And then I'll just choose to put Scotty with these guys. I'm not going to force the optimizer to choose any of these golfers, though. That is fine. And then the rest of the buckets are 0 to 2 golfers. Let's just see if we find any notable names. Recent form 4. These are golfers. This is the Scott. If we go back to 2016, this bucket here that I am mentioning are all of these golfers that I had just talked about in this pink range, the pink recent form. Kevin Na finished 7th, Furyk finished 2nd, and Scott Piercy finished 2nd. 7th, 2nd, and 2nd. So when we take a look here, these are all your recent forms that are pink. And do I really feel confident with any of these golfers? The answer is no, honestly. I don't really care. And we went back to 2016. Do we have anything similar? I mean, Andres Gonzalez was a ball striker. Scott Piercy was an accuracy guy. Snedeker was an accuracy guy. I don't know Justin Hicks. Streelman is an accuracy guy. Furyk is an accuracy guy. Bill Haas was kind of just an all-around golfer. Oppenheim was an accuracy guy. Louis Oosthuizen was a really good ball striker. And had finished 2nd at the previous U.S. Open. Okay. Kisner, accuracy guy. Rogers, more of a long ball hitter. Ogilvy, ball striker. Kevin Na, accuracy guy. Landry, accuracy guy. Okay. So what do we see this week in the field? Long ball hitter, accuracy guy, long ball hitter. Who is Matthew Pavon? His off the tee stat is a 0. He's not really an approach guy, I'll tell you that. What's his distance off the tee? We could use this right here, the driving distance stat. Pavon, not really a long ball guy. Chris Kirk, accuracy guy. Doug Gim, accuracy guy. Adam Schenk, kind of a ball striker. I don't know if I'll find my way to Adam Schenk, though. Zach Blair's an accuracy guy. Lauer is an accuracy guy. Nick Dunlap is broken. Don't play Nick Dunlap. Joe Highsmith is an accuracy golfer. And then I don't really care to talk about the rest of these golfers down here. So none of them all that great. And I don't know if I would take much from 2016 and apply it here because they're not the same guys. Like Chris Kirk has one on tour. So I guess if we were to mention that, yes, we could kind of compare him to Kevin Streelman or even Scott Piercy. Does he even have kind of similar finishes, I wonder? If I look at the 2025 recent form page that I have, what price tags are we looking at? Kirk is $5,900. $5,900 for Chris Kirk. There we go. 42nd, 55th, and 2 miscuts. It's not super great. Not super great. And I mean, Scott Piercy's was even worse. And Jim Furyk, I mean, it kind of matches Jim Furyk's. He's in the same pedigree as Jim Furyk. Huh. Sure, maybe this is how we get on someone like Chris Kirk. I'm not saying that that's why we need to anchor around him, but I'm just throwing it out there that it is possible that this is a good reason to play him. You know, the did not play the week before. Maybe that's a big deal. 2016. Do we see the same thing? Piercy did not play the week before. Neither did Jim Furyk. And neither did Kevin Na. Andrew Landry did, though. He finished 41st. We have to include him on that. Yeah, nobody else did. And what we have Minwoo, who didn't play last week. Neither did Davis Thompson. Neither did Chris Kirk. Highsmith or Campbell, or this George Duong Mani. Don't really care about that guy. Chris Kirk, Davis Thompson. I really don't want to play Minwoo Lee this week, but hey, sometimes you just got to take a gamble on a golfer, and that's fine. But that's interesting. Hey man, that kind of gets me on Chris Kirk. He's a previous tour winner, so too is Davis Thompson. All right, interesting. I really don't care about any of the other golfers, to be quite honest with you. All right, let's move on. Sorry, that was a long segment for recent form. We can quickly go into recent form 5s and 6s. I don't think we're really going to see anybody that we care for. 2 live golfers. Oh, Jason Day. Patrick Reed. So a lot of the live golfers, and this is because of their PGA Championship finish. So you can exclude a lot of those guys from this list, honestly. That's not true recent form, but I still would keep it 0 to 2. I wouldn't play more than 2 of these golfers. And then recent form 6 is also 0 to 2. And these are just golfers who have not played on tour in the last 7 weeks, including live golfers. But yeah, 0 to 2 works for me. I'm going to keep it at that. All right, so from here, we can go to salaries, and I'm not going to look at the golfers when we talk about salaries. Salary buckets, these are power rankings. Salaries are power rankings. Does DraftKings get it correct? And that's kind of why I do this analysis. Well, it looks like we see at least one golfer from the 10K range finishing inside the top 10 every single year. So yes, the cream rises to the top at the US Open. Go figure. You know what? I need to change something really quick. Let's do this on the fly. You're going to follow along with me. I've memorized the salaries. I need to change the ranges. So 10,000 is good. 9,000. Actually, I haven't memorized the 9,000 range. There's a price conversion tool on the cheat sheet, by the way, and that's what we're going to apply to these bucket totals. So 9,800 to 85. So when I go back to here, I'm going to go in from here. We change 9,000 to 8,500. And we just change, we can keep this at 10,000, that's fine. And then the 8K range is 82 to 73. So now I change 8,000 to 10,000 from 73 to 82. Or was it 83? Let me double check on that once again. 73, okay, so I actually need to go 83, 73 to 83. Okay, 10 golfers there. Our 7K range goes down to 6,300. So we go from 73 being our max there to 63. Gives us 38 golfers. And then it's 5,500 to 6,300. Gives us 54. And it's everybody under 5,500. Okay, that's wrong. So it'd be 56 then. And this would be 56. There you go. That's perfect. It's exactly how it should be. And I think that's exactly what I have here, right? 63. Yep, 56 to 62. And then everything under 56 is that 6th bucket. Okay, now that we've updated those, I think that'll update our bucket projections. And it did. Now for 10K range, it went from 1 to 3 to 0 to 2. That makes sense. 0 to 2, that's fine. But we still have seen at least one inside the top 10 every single year. 9K range, 0 to 2, but we've seen one inside the top 10 every single year. We got to create Scotty filters on all of these. Although we don't need to bump anything down. I think the 0 to 2 is perfect. 1 to 3 7Ks, 0 to 2 high 6Ks, and 0 to 2 low 6Ks. Again, I advise you guys to go to the cheat sheet to see what the price conversion is. Because again, the 8K range for me is 73 to 82. The 7K range is 72 to 63. The reason I do this is because to analyze this every single week, we need to normalize the salaries. And when DraftKings does this stupid thing like add Scotty at 14,400 and then bump down the lowest price to 5K range, I need to make that adjustment. We need to bump up these 5K golfers to resemble 6K golfers. And doing that, we have to bump everything else. Now, your high-end prices will actually go down in price most of the time until they hit a threshold, and then it switches. So, anyways, just wanted to throw that out there to you guys. And yeah, we talked about this mostly in the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. I don't really need to talk about salaries, but that's how you would read it. And I will make that update for the cheat sheet. Strokes gain stats. Again, we need the Scotty filter. So 2 to 5 strokes gain 1 golfers. Here's the easy way to do this on the cheat sheet. Make sure there are no filters applied whatsoever. And then sort on the strokes gain stat A to Z. Now you can see they're all color coded. So this dark green represents strokes gain 1. We want to find 2 to 5 golfers, or at least we're projecting 2 to 5 golfers to be inside the top 10. Again, I'm applying the Scotty Scheffler filter, so that 2 to 5 changes to a 1 to 5. So really you do want to find one other golfer to put in your lineup. I just say put one of these guys in your lineup because I do anticipate Scotty will finish inside the top 10. And unless he wins the tournament, he might not pay off his salary. And you don't want to be stuck trying to find 2 golfers down here. And if you do anchor around Scotty and the other guy that does finish inside the top 10, you're not guaranteed to take down a GPP because again, Scotty's price tag at 14,400 just makes it difficult for him to actually pay off his price tag. Just throwing that out there. And then moving on from there, our strokes gain 2 bucket says 1 to 3. Guess what? The Scotty filter gets applied here and it becomes 0 to 3. But you do get Bryson in that bucket. You get Patrick Cantlay, Joaquin Niemann, Victor Hovland, Substraka, and then it drops from there. So I think that's perfect. We applied the Scotty filter to this, and instead of 1 to 3, it becomes 0 to 3. And then none of the other buckets have at least 1. So as we go through these, strokes gain 3, Ludwig and Brooks Koepka. Hey, this is perfect because there isn't really 2 golfers that I really want to anchor my lineups around. I do like Ludwig this week, and then I just don't mind playing the rest of these guys. So I'm not looking to anchor around any of those golfers except for maybe Ludwig. The rest of them, they can just fill in whenever, wherever. Strokes gain 4 is the same thing. Nobody really strong in the strokes gain 4 bucket. Russell Henley, Cam Smith, Sam Burns. I do like Sam Burns, like I've said before. Again, this bucket is a 0 to 2. 0 to 2 projection. So find 0 to 2 golfers to build your lineups around. I like Sam Burns. I like Steven Yeager. And if it was just those 2 guys, I'm perfect. I don't need to add any more. And I don't need to take anyone away. Strokes gain 5. You can see that right here. And oh, by the way, if you're wondering why these buckets are the way they are, like what determines a strokes gain 1 versus a strokes gain 2, go to SweetSpotDFS.com. Up in the fantasy tools, click on articles. I do also have a video down in the description down below that explains what the bucket system is, but you can also read what the bucket system is. I have created an article for you guys to read to see what the bucket system is all about. So there is an article for the bucket system. I forgot to mention that earlier. So anyways, we're rounding out this video with the Stroke Gain 6 buckets, and there's really no one else here. I mean, Mark Leachman's the only guy to really talk about. That's going to cover the bucket system. And again, this gets applied to the optimizer all by itself. If you want to go hand by hand, I've done that before. That's how I used to build lineups, is go hand by hand. I would just grab a golfer from a specific bucket, and then I put them, you know, in golfer 1 position, and then I would go find a second golfer in a particular bucket and do the exact same thing. But the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to use the SweetSpotDFS optimizer. And again, the way to get there is to go under Fantasy Tools, click under Optimizer, and then a pop-up happens where you just click your email, or you just type in your email address there and request now. That's how you get the optimizer. And I will be building lineups Tuesday night, June 10th, using the SweetSpotDFS optimizer and basically going over everything that we've learned throughout all these videos to try to create the most meaningful lineups for maybe you. If you want to come in and get lineups built using the optimizer, I will do just that. And then I'll give you my final pieces of information that I've learned up until that time. I will also say Wednesday night, I do a members only live stream where I really go throughout all the rest of the things that I've learned, because obviously we continue to learn every single day. The Wednesday is reserved for members only. I reward those that reward me. So those that are willing to pay money to be a white tier member and above, they get to see that exclusive, that exclusive stream. So we're at about an hour and a half into the stream. I don't have anything else to provide. So I am going to leave it at that. I'm going to say thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the live stream tomorrow. All right, bye.